I am so proud to be
Yeah.
a member of this worldwide movement, to be the political voice for so many people who are striving for animal rights and protecting of nature. And we are able to be the political voice for those people. And I have had that honor for 5,000 days now. So let's go for 5,000 more.
Oh, please, Esther, please do. Because Esther, she and Marianne Thieme came into parliament in 2006. And from last year on, Esther has been the party leader for the Partij for the Animals in the Netherlands. But she's going to tell you a lot more about what ecoism means. And the floor is yours, Esther. I can't add anything to that.
Thank you so much,
A
Elsa.
warm round of applause for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, dear friends. And I'm so delighted to see you all, albeit it's online because of the pandemic. But it's lovely to see familiar faces, new faces. And as I said, I'm very proud to be part of this movement because the political movement for animal rights, the Partij for the Animals in the Netherlands and all the sister parties around the world is a sign of the times. It's a sign that change is coming. And I'm very proud of our international success. I'm very proud of our bond that we're working as a global movement. I would like to share with you some successes of our sister parties, like the Animal Justice Party in Australia. They have called for stronger punishment for animal abusers in New South Wales. And they also ended breeding programs for dolphins, whales and porpoises used for entertainment. This is an amazing success and example for the rest of the world. So a warm applause for the Animal Justice Party in Australia. Yes. And our Portuguese sister party, PAN, has booked an historic win when its bill to ban shooting live birds for sport was passed in the Portuguese parliament. Well done to PAN, and a warm round of applause for them. Woo! Our Cypriotic sister party, Animal Party Cyprus, ensured that a special police unit is set up to tackle cases of animal abuse. And in this introduction, I would like to congratulate all of us by the success that was booked in the European Parliament, where the grassroots movement of European citizens who are striving for animal rights took up the petition to call for an end of the cage age. So our Member of Parliament, Anja Hazekamp, worked together with the other animal rights parliamentarians in the European Parliament, and they passed it. So now the European Commission has to come up with legislation to ban all cages in animal farming. It is a huge breakthrough, and again, a sign that change is coming. We are the first political movement worldwide and the first political party that chooses a completely different perspective from the mainstream political system. We choose not to start with thinking and reasoning from a Western perspective, from the short-term economic interests of human beings, but we choose an eco-centric approach. We start by wondering, what do other species need? In what way can we live in harmony with our surroundings, with our environment, and with the animals that we share our world with? It's a completely unique perspective, and I am convinced that this unique perspective is the ground for our success, because it is a political translation of a movement that had been going on in society for a long, long time. It is grassroots. Throughout history, people have protested this egocentric approach that policies and the decision that politics are making are only regarding human interest and are completely disregarding the interests of our environment, of nature, of animals, our climate. And where we are today with the climate crisis exploding in front of our eyes, with the biodiversity crisis that seems unsolvable, we can conclude that the old ways of thinking, the old approach of the political parties that are not parties for the animals, just isn't working for the resolvement of those challenges that we face. And the biggest lesson, the biggest wake-up call might be the extreme changes in our environment with the amazing blasts in Australia that we saw with the bushfires, but recently the extreme heat waves in Canada. But it also is obviously the pandemic that broke loose. It has been said that the coronavirus was the pandemic that has brought modern civilization to its knees. And in a way, it did, because the world was completely in its grip, and there was a tremendous human suffering, great economic crisis, people suffering from the illness itself or suffering from the economic results of losing their jobs and being in great uncertainty. So the human cost is enormous. And this is one of the symptoms of what can happen if we don't change our perspective, if we keep disregarding animals, nature, and the climate. And governments around the world, including the government in the Netherlands, said that the coronavirus and the pandemic was a black swan. The black swan is a metaphor that was invented by Nassim Taleb, the Lebanese-American businessman, who described it as a situation in your economic system that you could not foresee. He said, a black swan is an outlier as it lies outside the realm of regular expectation because nothing in the past can convincingly point to its possibility. And second, he said, it carries an extreme impact. Well, coronavirus was indeed had an increasingly extreme impact, but it was not without the realm of possibilities, because virologists and scientists around the world have been warning about the way we treat animals, the way we treat nature, and that it poses an increasing risk for a zoonotic pandemic to occur. Corona was originated in China, where the disease passed from animal to human. And virologists and scientists around the world have been warning about this risk. And they said it's not a matter of will it happen, this new disease, but when and where. And the funny thing is that referring to the corona crisis as a black swan gives governments the opportunity to evade their responsibility, to pretend like there's nothing we could do about it. Well, there is. And the funny thing is that although the metaphor of the black swan is inappropriate for the coronavirus because it was expected, and if we don't change, we will have more pandemics like this one, something about the metaphor was right, and that it has something to do with animals. So it's our job to point out to governments, to society, that there's something to be done. And that is our message of hope. If we don't want to end up in another pandemic like the corona crisis, we need to change. And we can change. That is a message of hope. So let's use this as a wake-up call. Like Dr. Jane Goodall said so profoundly, the pandemic is a result of humans' disregard for and the mistreatment of animals and nature. And we are all interconnected. If we don't get that lesson from this pandemic, then maybe we never will. My call to you, to the government in the Netherlands and to the governments worldwide is, let's use this lesson, because it's a symptom. It's a symptom of what can happen if we don't stop treating animals and nature the way we do. We won't be able to solve the climate crisis if we don't stop animal agriculture. We won't be able to stop the biodiversity crisis if we don't stop animal agriculture. We won't be able to protect ourselves and our loved ones from future pandemics if we don't stop animal agriculture. So it's a powerful message. And the good news is that worldwide, the movement for change is growing. I met Greta Thunberg a couple of years ago, who is the most perfect example of this saying that you can never doubt that you are, or you can never think that you might be too small to make a change. Look at this girl who started on her own a climate strike at the parliament of the country she lived in Sweden. She has brought the worldwide climate movement to a completely next level. Worldwide, people followed her example. Worldwide, people, young people, old people, and everything in between started to go on climate strikes. She has managed to be a speaker on the United Nations platform. She talks to political leaders around the world. And she did that by starting on her own as a 15-year-old girl protesting at her government. So the hope is that the awareness is growing. And the hope is also that it's not just a civil movement, but there are political parties who are the voice of this movement for change. I mentioned that in the European Parliament we had a huge success, along with the other successes of our sister parties, by getting the European Parliament and the European Commission to speak out against keeping animals in animal agriculture in cages. In the Netherlands and in other European countries, we have ended farming animals for fur, which is another big breakthrough and a sign of the times that change is coming. And it's also good to realize that when change is coming, there will be turbulence. In the Netherlands, for example, our government is completely in a crisis because the crisis I just mentioned, climate, the preservation of nature, protecting biodiversity, but also taking care of animals the way we should, are unresolved. And because brave citizens went to court and the judges ordered in favor of the citizens and not in favor of the government, they need to act. And obviously, that's a good sign. But the turbulence also implies that there will be protests. So we have seen many protests from farmers in the Netherlands who came to the city where our parliament is housed with their tractors and disrupting the whole country, even to a point when, and this is kind of funny really, that Jacinda Ardern, is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, said to our Prime Minister, "Wow, do you have a great agricultural exhibition in your country?" Well, no, Jacinda, it is a protest, and every tractor in the Netherlands came to the city where our parliament is housed, because obviously for farmers this change can be very threatening. And we understand that farmers are locked in a system that their governments put them in, forced them to invest in all kinds of technological innovations, instead of being told the truth and the change that we have to go through, that we need to change our food system to a more plant-based food system, that we need to phase out animal agriculture in order for the farmers to have a sustainable future. So don't be scared when the turbulence is going on, because it's part of the change, and we need to work together and also pose some perspective for the farmers, that the future will be plant-based and that we need farmers to help in this sustainable plant-based future. The turbulence that we might see around us now is very much needed. Things will change and need to change because the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis are at the level or the break of tipping points. And the good news is that the resistance from citizens, helped by the judges who rule in their favor, is growing as well. And as the Netherlands might be one of the countries in the European Union that is one of the worst countries when it comes to changing to renewable energy sources, when it comes to animal agriculture. No other country has more animals in animal agriculture as the Netherlands, when it comes to biodiversity laws. So we're not doing well as a country, but what we are doing very well is that our citizens are going to court and they win historic cases like Urgenda, who won the climate case. That is an example for citizens around the world to go to court as well, to make their governments take the appropriate measures against climate change. The same goes for biodiversity. The same goes for the case against Shell. So while there's a lot of work to be done in the Netherlands, there are great successes as well, which are important for our movement around the globe. And I end by saying that because of the success, our party, the Partij voor the Animals, has realized in a couple of months even since the last elections. We had elections this year and we had a great result. Our party grew with 50% in number of seats in the parliaments, and we immediately used this new greater power in Parliament to make some legislative changes for the animals. So aside from the changes that are because of the awareness that the pandemic urges us to change, urges us to listen to the experts who recommend our government to drastically cut down the number of animals in our farming system to reduce the risk of a new zoonotic pandemic. We also achieved legislative changes that are a huge step forward to protect animals in a better way than we did. So let's take heart from these changes, from this progress that we're making. I hope that we'll have a great weekend in discussing with each other what the future can look like, what the future should look like. It's the only future that is sustainable, changing the way we eat. It's as easy as that. We can save the world with our fork and our knife. And I'm very, very happy and very proud to be part of this movement and to be part of this weekend where we can work together to make that change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Esther. Yes, may I invite you to take a seat, and then we'll ask us. I'll have some questions. I'll look at the tablet and see who wants to go first, and we can have a little chat.
Let's do so.
Yeah, I really need my glasses for this. Here's first question from Zimbabwe. I'll read it out. Zimbabwe is continuously shipping baby elephants and not other species undercover to China for zoos. What assistance can we get? Oh, it's gone. Oh, help. The question is gone. It's gone from my screen, sorry. What assistance can we get from Partij for the Animals worldwide to stop this?
Well, it's a good question. The thing we achieved as the Partij voor the Animals in the Netherlands is that because of the pandemic that broke out, we continue to point our government and made people aware that the international trade of animals is one of the risks as well. So because of animal welfare, for the rights of animals and the biodiversity that we need to protect, the Partij voor the Animals in the Netherlands and the other Partij voor the Animals obviously will promote policies that end the trade of animals worldwide. So we will continue to do that from the European Parliament, from the Dutch Parliament, from the other parties of animals. I assume to make sure that we end the livestock, the wildlife trade.
Yeah, big, huge problem as well, and
It is.
especially in African countries where, of course, elephants are under enormous threat.
Yeah, and it needs to stop. So it's,
Yeah.
thank you for this question.
Yeah, important. Then another question. We can go anywhere,
Yeah.
as we notice. A question from Poland. In a world where agriculture is becoming a political battleground, animal welfare and sustainability are becoming weapons of populists and opponents of change. How should we convince people that animal rights and the elimination of animals from the food chain are necessary without further polarization? Yeah.
Well, it's
it's happening, right?
It is.
Sometimes.
It is. It is. And one of the scientists that I quote in my book actually points this out as well. When you are looking from a scientific point of view, eating plants, it's safer than eating animals. If you want to prevent a pandemic, it's just the safest thing to do. But he also says, it's Earl Brown from Canada, who is a leading expert on this kind of viruses. He also says it's so sad that it's so politicized, because when you look at it with reason, it's the safest thing to do, and it's completely obvious that we should change. But my advice will be to address all the issues that are involved with animal agriculture. We cannot solve the climate crisis if we keep on with this animal industry. We cannot solve the biodiversity crisis. And also, we cannot feed the world, because one of the misconceptions that has to, get out of the way is that animal agriculture is producing food. They are wasting food. So with the protest that I talked about in the Netherlands, we saw these big signs of farmers who said,
Yes.
no farmers, no food. No farmers, no food. That's true. But animal agriculture points us and leads us in the way of where we cannot feed the world. So we need to change to a plant-based diet. So from a human interest perspective, there are a lot of arguments to be made to help break this politicized situation that we're in.
Yeah. So your advice would be to not be discouraged by polarization.
Do not be discouraged.
And use it to your advantage.
Yes, yes. So
Yes.
if someone says to you, well, no farmers, no food,
Yeah.
you can say, that's completely correct. And we need farmers to produce the plant-based food that we can feed the world with.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. I have another question here from the UK. We are a small group of volunteers taking legal action against the UK government, on which you were talking from the Netherlands, for not protecting people from the health risks of factory farming. We have filed for a court case. Given the action is against the government, how do you recommend we go about getting support from MPs, please?
Yes. Well, I think that the pandemic has taught us that when the crisis is imminent and urgent and right at our doorstep, governments seem to be able at once to act. So when the pandemic broke out, all governments in the world, some circumstances, of some exceptions, they said we need to take drastic measures because we need to protect the health of our citizens. So this argument cannot go away when the crisis is not as imminent as when the pandemic is already there. So what we do, and hopefully in the UK there are MPs as well, who know that this argument is valid on any given day, not only when there is a pandemic, but also when factory farms are threatening the health of humans living nearby. So I would ask those MPs if they feel that human health is more important than economic interests. I would point out what the health risks are. For example, in the Netherlands, people living nearby goat farms are experiencing a far more higher risk of having pneumonia than people who are not near a goat farm. So MPs should be vulnerable to this argument and should be vulnerable to the argument that whatever you do, public health is more important than economic interest.
Yes, thank you. There's another question from Serbia. If you had a chance to propose one first step towards the animal liberation in the blueprint for post-capitalism, what would that be? One first step.
Well, the biggest step is obviously ending animal exploitation.
Yes.
As a whole. I think if I have to choose, this will be the one, because recently we had a great success by improving the legislation that is supposed to protect animals, but the very best protection is not to be born in animal agriculture at all. So stopping the breeding of animals for a life that leads to the slaughter is the best animal rights measure that one can take.
Yes, saves most lives.
It saves the most lives,
Yes.
and the most harm to animals.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're coming to a last question, and this one is from Zimbabwe again. Thank you for joining us so actively. Very good.
Very good.
How have you managed to grow the citizen interest in protecting animals, looking at the progress you have made?
Oh, good question.
How did you do that, Esther?
How did we do
Tell
that?
us.
Well, first we obviously we knew that people hate animal abuse. That's throughout every society, I think. The thing is that the industry is very good at hiding the abuse that is done to animals in, for example, animal agriculture, and the political system was used to tend to the short-term interests of the agricultural system. So the lobby from the farmers' groups was very strong, and we just went for it. We just went for, but the people of the Netherlands, and I think it's true for every society, the people are hoping that animals are treated better. So it's a very strong base that you can stand on, and you can put into a political viewpoint. And when you are successful at entering the political arena, then I am sure that it will happen in other countries as well. You will see that your support within the citizens group will grow, because it's so deep to our own hearts, and people are missing a voice for animal rights in the current political systems. So there's a great need for parties for the animals all around the globe. I truly believe that. So when you get active and you stick to your ideals, your support will grow. It happened this way in the Netherlands, and I'm sure it will happen in other countries as well.
Yes. And from the experience we have in the worldwide movement, we know that very often it starts with projects to help stray dogs, or to bring awareness to children for how they treat animals in their lives, and from that it can grow.
Yeah.
So that's sometimes it's a small step which turns out to be a leap, a huge leap. Yeah, thank you. I have a question here from the United States. What has been the largest challenge with moving the Party for the Animals agenda forward while in office?
Well, the people needed to get used to a Party of the Animals being in Parliament. Just the very idea of a political party having a completely different starting point. Animals, you know, we thought of Gandhi a lot, especially in the first days of our existence.
When you were called the Animal Girls.
Yeah, we were called the Animal Girls,
as I recall. Yes.
And there was a lot of laughter in Parliament whenever there was an issue at stake, and some animal name, or you know, some saying which contained the name of an animal. People would laugh and look at us. So it was a phase of getting used to, but we took heart by the saying of Gandhi, who predicted that every emancipation movement will first start out with people ignoring you, then being laughed at, then fierce resistance to your ideas, and then, this is the great part, then you win. So we knew it was a complete normal process that we were going through. We took it as a good sign that we were on the right way. So it was basically, I wouldn't say it was an obstacle, because it was just the phase you need to go through, and I think it is an inherent part of stepping up and presenting a completely different point of view than all the others. This is what will happen, but you can be sure that you will be successful. So don't see it as an obstacle, but as a fun challenge you're going to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you say, having fun in what you're doing is so important.
It is. It is.
When you're working in a good team and you can laugh about the things that you encounter, that's also
it's very
helpful to continue with your
It is.
struggle. Yeah.
And if I can add something practical, because at first, obviously, people only knew that we were a party for animal rights, and all the attention was on why do you need a party for animal rights? And so all the discussion was about animals, which is a very good thing, because that's what we were there for. But because we are in Parliament now for nearly 15 years, more and more people got the chance to learn about our broader view as well. So people are very pleasantly surprised that we have such fundamental ideas about our economic system, about what we need to change in order to solve all these problems that people are very worried about. People are very worried about what climate change will do, and what effect it will have on their children and grandchildren.
Yes.
And when they are, looking at the political spectrum, they see that the Party for the Animals is the only party that has the fundamental solutions. So when you start out, people will be surprised that there's a Party for the Animals. People will have questions. And if you just hang on and be the party that you are and have fun and I can't find the word, zelfvertrouwen. Confidence. Have confidence in your mission. Then people will recognize that this paradigm shift that you are the front leader of is the paradigm shift that we need to make to solve all the other problems as well. So be confident, have fun, and step up the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question is from Turkey. Thank you so much, Esther. It's very difficult to even establish basic animal rights in Turkey, especially at the moment.
Yes.
That's what I say. It's more difficult to form a party and develop laws. What would you suggest for us?
I can imagine that it is very difficult in different countries. One of the advantages in the Netherlands is that we have a completely proportional electoral system, and other people around the globe, for example in the US or the UK with this district system, there are less chances for new political parties to have a breakthrough. But I would advise to keep advocating your ideals, because I am convinced that it's part of being human, that we have the ability to have empathy, to show empathy, and everywhere around the world people are horrified by animal abuse. So people around the world need advocates who take it as their life mission to change the way we treat animals, and you will have support, even though in some countries the struggle is harder than in others. I recognize that truly, and I am so grateful for people in all the countries around the world who are stepping up for animal rights. But you do have the support of the citizens of your country. I'm convinced of that.
Yes. And I remember when we were in Lebanon a few years ago that there were people there, animal rights activists, who successfully helped change a law from the outside as a lobbying organization. So working towards a political party, you can also do that. And maybe we'll talk about that later, but we talked about that in the international movement a lot. What can I do now? So that adds to, and then you have a success, which is really nice, of course. Yes.
Yes, you can also help if you know there's an MP who is interested in animal rights.
Yes.
And you have the expertise on what is wrong with the laws, for example, to protect stray animals. I'm sure that those MPs will be very grateful for the work that you can do to lay out the changes that need to be made in the legislation.
Yes.
So I know, for example, in the US, there's a group working that's called Voters for Animal Rights, who endorse MPs who actively speak out for animal rights, and they also help with preparing legislation that the MP can suggest in Parliament. So that's one of the routes also that you can take. Yeah.
Well, Esther, we're coming to an end. I'd love to talk to
soon.
you a lot more.
Yeah.
But we'll do that in the future.
We will.
For now, I thank you very much for joining us on this Saturday morning. For us, it's early in the morning. And I wish you all the best and good luck, and also a very good vacation, because it's holiday time in the Netherlands. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to having a great weekend of presentations and discussions. So we'll see you online.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.